Hey everybody, Kate here. Happy Tuesday for our Facebook Live. I'm excited to be with you guys here today, and we have a special guest, Cristina Garcia Chapel.
Yeah.
Welcome to our Facebook Live, Cristina.
Thank you. It's an honor. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, we're so happy you're here. So, as usual, you guys, go ahead and put your comments or your questions in the chat, in the comment box, and we'll be happy to respond to your questions while we're live on the video. And we do monitor the comments after the video. So if you're not watching this live and you have a question that comes up that you just want to post on the comments, go for it. But if you have a personal question that you don't want to share with everybody on Facebook, give us a call or give us a text message at our office number. These notes are in Spanish, but this is our phone number, 512-599-8500. Or you can also just send us a chat via Facebook. We're always monitoring that chat window, and we are not charging for consultations throughout the pandemic. So honestly, if you have any questions or just want to talk about your eligibility, just don't hesitate to reach out. There's no reason not to get information that you need right now. So a couple of updates before we get started on our theme for today with Cristina. The first thing is we've been talking to you guys about the filing fee increase that takes effect on October 2nd. So we're already midway through September. And what I want to say about the filing fee increase is it is happening. And for most people who are starting their case now, it's too late to pay the existing filing fee because it takes several weeks typically to prepare an application. The big changes and increases are for green card applications, adjustments of status, and citizenship cases. They're going up between $500 and $1,000. Contact us if you are trying to rush file, but also keeping in mind that if you don't meet the deadline, don't worry, we're still here. We're not raising our fees to help our clients. Our fees are staying the same. As always, we offer payment plans to make this stuff accessible for you guys. I know it's an investment to go after an immigration benefit, but it's for your future and your children's future, and it's worth the investment. So we're not going to be raising your fees. So keep pursuing your cases, even though you've heard that the deadline is October 2nd for the filing fee increase. That's what I want to say. The other thing, as usual in the world of immigration, there are changes happening all the time. The most recent change that we've experienced is not a good one. It's related to TPS, which stands for Temporary Protected Status. And TPS is a benefit that's available to people who are in the United States when a natural disaster or infrastructure collapse occurs in their country, like a hurricane or something like that. And so we've had TPS for people from Honduras since 1998, since Hurricane Mitch in 1998, and for El Salvador since 2001. We've also got TPS that has been canceled for Nepal, Nicaragua, and Sudan. So the bottom line of what's happened is that a couple of years ago, Trump canceled TPS for Honduras, El Salvador, Nicaragua, Sudan, and Nepal. And then there was federal litigation that held up the cancellation. So everyone with TPS from these countries has been on a valid work permit just waiting to see what happens. Well, yesterday, the Ninth Circuit Court in California ruled that the administration may cancel the program. And so what that means is it is coming to an end. So if you are watching this video and you or someone you know has had TPS status, particularly if they're from Honduras or El Salvador, they've been here for decades already. They've probably had children who are U.S. citizens and raised them in the United States. There may be other options available to you. And so, like I said, we're not charging for consultation. So if you're worried about what's going to happen when TPS ends, call us. We'll talk it through. We'll explore whether there are other options and what will happen. And one thing to note is that when the program ends, if Trump is still in office, the way that would play out is that they would initiate deportation proceedings against everyone who had TPS. So you would be assigned a court case. You'd have to go to court. There's lots of defense to deportation available to people who have lots of time in the U.S. and good moral character. So don't panic. It's not good news, but there are ways that we can help you get around it. And so just call us or text us. So That's the TPS update. And with that, let me switch to a more fun topic, which is my friend Cristina here to talk to us today about workplace accidents on the job. So when she's done, I'm going to be talking to you guys about trafficking visas, T visas. So there's this great benefit in immigration on a T visa, and everyone thinks like when you hear trafficking, you think of sex trafficking. But there's a lot of other ways that people can be trafficked for work. So I'm going to talk to you guys about that at the end. But first, I want to give Cristina a chance to tell us about your rights and how to handle accidents on the job. And so her name is Cristina Garcia Chapel, and she's with the Pastrana Law Firm. So just like our firm, it's a fully bilingual firm. They're happy to attend to people in English or Spanish, and we'll be doing the same video in Spanish at noon. It's 11:11, make a wish.
Oh, yeah.
And so let me put your phone number up on the screen here, Cristina. And with that, I will turn it over to you. And as soon as you're ready for your PowerPoint, just let me know.
Thank you. I'm ready, Kate. And yes, our law firm specializes in accidents. And in this time, we're going to talk about work-related accidents. And you'll see how it's a little more complicated than the auto accidents, because sometimes there's not an authority that it's been called to the place where the accident occurred. And that's what our intention is today, that I want to make sure that all your audience, when they have a work-related accident, they're reported to the manager, but also if it's serious enough, to OSHA. And we were going to talk about who is OSHA, or the police, or the sheriff department, some kind of authority. So there's a record that the accident exists, and there's an investigation about what happened. Okay. So let's start with so like I said, all workplace accident cases, they need a legal orientation. It's not usual to have people calling for for our consultations are free too. So they're not going to waste any resources, any money in just learning if they have any type of legal tool that they can recover for their work-related accident. So there's a classic dispute that we see in the field of work-related accidents. We see the employees versus independent contractor. And three things that I want to point out today. I want to say that neither the business nor the individual can choose whether their worker is classified as a contractor or employee. Especially in the Hispanic community, there's a lot of patrones, employers, that they want to qualify or they want to classify their employees as an independent contractor, so they have less responsibility in case of something happen. So this is a typical dispute. And so number two is that I want to make sure that everyone understands that the relationship between the parties and the presence of direction and control determines that relationship. So whether the worker is an employee or independent contractor, again, it's not what the employer said, it's what the relationship itself. So specific facts that we're looking for, like control, who gives you the control, who determines your schedule, how they pay you. So a written or oral contract or agreement does not determine the status of if you're an independent contractor or if you're an employee. So I just want to point out that first. Second,
I want to say one thing about that, Cristina, just to reiterate that you are so right, particularly with immigrant employees. Employers often just classify as a contract worker because if they do that, they're not responsible for checking into the immigration status of the employee. But many times the employee is miscategorized. You can't categorize someone as a contract worker if they're actually an employee.
Yes.
So it's something that we see.
Yeah, and they make them believe of that. They make them believe, and they're like, even after an accident, they're like, oh, but you were an independent contractor. There's no law that can, protect you because I hired you and you were not in the payroll.
Right.
Well, that's not true. There's other factors other than being on the payroll that can be classified as an employee. We just need to analyze every single. That's what I'm saying. It's hard for the employer or the employee to define if I'm an employer, or I'm an employee, or I'm an independent contractor. I really don't know. It's just call and we will let you know what is more similar to your character. Depends on what the characteristics that we're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I want to mention is the OSHA. I don't know if a lot of your audience are familiar with this. I'm sure the people that work in the construction sites are very familiar because sometimes they do inspections. And the OSHA is an agency. It's a federal agency that supervises and regulates the work, the circumstances at work. The best way to work for a worker is going to be regulated by OSHA standards. So under the federal law, workers have the rights of a safe workplace. That's the starting. And what's a safe workplace? Well, it's there. You can go to OSHA and find a lot of materials of what are your rights. Depends on the industry. Like, for example, in the restaurant industry, there's certain regulations that the employer or the owner of the restaurant needs to provide you. In the construction, there's other regulations. And if you're a diving in Travis and you work for a company that does commercial diving, that's different regulations. So OSHA has it's like a huge book that will give you what are the regulations that I need to follow as an employer and as an employee. Mm-hmm. So some of the things that I have in this slide here is like the workers have the right to be trained in a language that they understand, which we see a lot in the Spanish community, that little by little they get in better training in their own language so they can understand better what the managers are talking about. They need to have access to a saved machines that they're properly maintained in the work site. They also have the right to be protected from toxic chemicals. They have the right to call OSHA to do an inspection if they believe there's a reason that they're performing their job in an unsafety way. Mm-hmm. So there's also an OSHA department that will investigate the whistleblower claims. In other words, what a worker have filed a complaint or call OSHA to file a complaint against the company that he's working for because he didn't like the way they are performing their job in safety wise. They cannot retaliate against that employee. Okay, and that is another department in OSHA that is regulated by the federal law that will supervise if that there is certain retaliation against that employee for reports to OSHA. So, like, again, go to the website. If you're working any type of work that you do, it's really good to know what are the rights that you have to really perform your job in a safe workplace. Okay, let's go. Okay, so after an accident and a work-related accident, there's two legal paths available for the worker, the injured worker. There's the Texas State Workers' Compensation Act, and there is the civil common law, which is the one that the cases that we take. Workers' compensation, it's a type of law that is everything is by a statute, and there are certain attorneys that they do those kind of cases. They're a little limited in terms of the benefits that you can receive, but they're also, it's very easy. It's a very easy claim, or at least easier than the common law claim or the civil with the courts, civil courts, the ones that we usually represent our clients.
Can I ask you a question? Is that only for people who work for the state of Texas?
No. This is the workers' comp. And let me go through this one. So workers' comp, it's a state statute that provides coverage to the injured worker, regardless of who was at fault, as long as the worker was injured at the work-related, was injured on the job or suffers from the work-related injuries. So he has to be at the job site. And the employer has the workers' compensation insurance coverage. So this is an insurance that you can purchase as an owner of a business that you can purchase. You're not required to purchase under Texas law. Texas is the only state that doesn't require you as an owner for a business to purchase this. It's kind of expensive, but it also gives you the benefit to the owner of the company to be protected against common law civil lawsuits. So if you have that workers' comp coverage or that workers' comp insurance on your company, then if something happened to your workers, to your employees, they're going to make a claim through that insurance only, and they won't be able to bring you to a court of law, civil common law court for damages that was created in that accident.
That's a really great point, because we're going to have our viewers, our employees of companies who are, construction workers working on the job site. We also have a lot of viewers who are own companies, and they have their own employees. And so it sounds like what you're saying is, if you have workers, it's a good idea to get this insurance so that you are protecting yourself.
It is a good idea. It's easier to handle claims because the insurance company handles the claim just like an auto accident. So it's insurance, it's an adjuster. The benefits are under the statute. You don't have to prove as an employee. You don't have to prove who was responsible for the accident. It just needs to be happen at the work site. That's it. So it's not like you're given the responsibility or you're saying that your employer was negligent for your accident. It's just easier to do it. It's not cheap and it's not required. And that's one of the main reasons why people don't get it. Mm-hmm. Because Texas does not require, and it's not a cheap policy, but it's definitely the best way to conduct business.
Okay.
So if you want to see if your employer has this type of coverage, you go to this link. It's public, and you can just type the date of the accident or the date of the coverage that you want to verify, and the legal name of the business, and it will show you if they have or not workers' comp insurance. If they do have workers' comp insurance, your rights as a injury worker are going to be in the status, and it's going to be easier to I say easier, but you don't have to prove anything other than it happened at the accident. And you report it also, because there's some people that they cut themselves and they just go home, or they fall and they feel embarrassed. They don't want to tell the manager. And then the manager responds to the insurance is going to say, well, they have no report that somebody injured at work. I don't know what you're talking about. So there would be, testimonies, different testimonies for the worker as for the manager. Mm-hmm. So the only thing you have to do is just report it to the manager, get the information from the manager about what's the insurance company that they use for workers' comp coverage, and you make the claim, or they make the claim directly. And that is for workers' comp. Let me see. Go to the what are the kind of disputes that it can be presented on these claims? And again, we don't take these kind of cases, but we have a list of a lot of competent workers' comp attorneys that can help. So if somebody is dealing with a workers' comp adjuster and they are not satisfied with the doctor that they assign to them, they are not satisfied with the percentage of salary that they're being received, because under workers' comp, one of the benefits is if you're disabled, say for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, you're going to get a percentage of your salary, not the full amount of salary, but it's part of your benefits. You get 75% of your salary. Sometimes the salary that you were making, or the amount that you get paid, is not the same as the employer reported to the insurance. So sometimes there's a dispute about the actual money that you were making at the time of the accident. That could be one of the disputes. Other dispute that we see often is that the worker is still feeling ill or still in pain, and they release him to go to work, and that's one dispute. Or they do not approve MRIs or ultrasounds or something extra that they feel they need, and the doctor that they've been assigned to their case, because they're network doctors, they need to they believe that there's no necessary, and the employer, the worker is like, but I still want to see, I want to make sure that everything is okay with my back after a hernia surgery or something like that. So those are the disputes that they can be presented in a workers' comp claim. Now, the cases that we actually focus in the firm, and there are, I say, more complicated, but that's why you need an attorney that has experience in this field. It's the claims under civil common law, the cases that they go to trial, they go to in front of a jury, and in the district or county courts, and those are the ones that you have against your employer or a general contractor, and they're not subscriber. In other words, they didn't purchase this policy that we were referring to before. Mm-hmm. So in those cases, the burden of the proof, it's on the plaintiff side. In other words, it's on the injured work side. So just as any other civil case, breach of contract or a discrimination, whoever is the plaintiff, which is the claimant, they need to prove their case. So they need to bring all the evidence. So starting with that, you have a disadvantage versus your employer that would keep records of everything, while you, in an example that I gave before, you suffer from an injury but didn't want to say anything, and you went home and you got treatment, but it was actually it was not a doctor, it was somebody that give you some tea and to feel better. So you start destroying the evidence without knowing about your case, and when it's time to prove the case, you really don't have the evidence you need to prove it. So that's why one of the recommendations that we're going to have today for all the people out there after an accident, a work-related accident, is to work quickly, so attorneys can evaluate your case and they can help you for you to understand what's the evidence that you need to collect with them, with the attorneys, in order to bring all the evidence that you can to prove your case in a civil case.
Yeah, and the same is true, in any personal injury case, right? Like the second you get in an auto accident, if you were injured.
But it's easier for some reason because usually a police is called to the scene really quick. So they have a report. It's a four pages report that the police officer elaborate. And he actually determines who was at fault. So it's not the insurance call. It's not even our client's call. It's the police officer call. So it's easier to say, I'm not even saying that your insurer is at fault. The police is saying it. So it's evidence, very, very convincing against the police report. And then the EMS showed up, and then they transferred them to the ER. So the way a car accident develops, it's a perfect path to create the evidence that you need to bring to the courthouse. The way a worker an accident at the workplace is certainly not that one. Usually what they do is the manager or the supervisor take the guy in the car and drive him to an ER and drop him there and say that you fall at your house. Do not say that this happened at the work site. And that see how everything started from the wrong path, from the wrong beginning. So that's why that's why people need to know their rights, and also as responsibilities as an employer. If you have a workers' comp coverage, you need to notify your insurance about any accident happened at your office, at your restaurant. And if you're not covered by a workers' comp, you need to assume your responsibility if it was negligence on your part. So, like I said, that's the number one reason why they need every person who injured at work needs an consultation, especially because it's free. We're not the only ones who give it a free consultation, Kate. There's in this field, in personal injury field, there's free consultation almost every single attorney. So even if they don't want to call us, we recommend to call an attorney that does personal injury and those work-related accidents, not only auto accident. Like I said, it requires a certain set of skills to do a work-related accident cases, especially in litigation.
I will say, don't just call any attorney. It's the same with immigration and personal injury. There are attorneys who are dabblers, who may practice a bunch of different areas of the law and don't know personal injury very well. And it's really important to not just call, the first person who is the Google result. It's to get a recommendation. I am recommending Cristina to you guys. If you're watching this video, you're one of our followers, you know me. So I am recommending her firm to you guys. And if you're going to call someone else, get a recommendation or look at the reviews online, see what their clients are saying about them. Because it is possible to find a lawyer who will not charge you for a consultation, but who will also not get you nearly as much money as you might otherwise have gotten. So it's important.
You're right.
Oh, good.
You're completely right. Thank you, Kate, for that. So, and I think this is the last one or the one before last one. Okay. So what does an attorney do for me? So I already say, but I just want to recap really quick. So analyze the fact to establish who could have been responsible for the accident. And I put this attention, it's not recommended to believe the employer's version of what happened, but the opinion of a qualified authority or expert in the field. Experts on the field can be experts that the attorneys hired to investigate what happened, or the attorneys itself after many, many years of seeing what happened or studying OSHA regulations and see where the employer failed with their duties in order that they couldn't be avoid the accident to the employee. So the other thing is collect the evidence with the help of the client. For example, photos of the tools that they were used when the accident occurred, photos of the injuries, pictures of the place where the accident. All those recommendations come right after an appointment with an attorney. It's like, okay, start taking pictures of all your injuries. Go back to the work site and take pictures of where exactly you fell, or what is the tool that you were using when the accident occurred. Collect the reports elaborated by authority. We know that if OSHA is notified about the accident, they're going to prepare a report, and they're going to prepare an extensive report that the attorneys can get. They can get a partial report with all the citations. In other words, with the determination of what the employer did wrong, which is our citation, called citations, because they give a ticket to the employer for the violations of OSHA regulations that they did that caused the accident. So all that file, it's a great evidence to determine what happened. Because if I call the owner of the restaurant after an accident and I say, oh, this is Cristina Garcia Chapel, I'm the attorney for your former employee, John Davis, and I want to talk to you about the accident, he's going to hang up on me. I mean, he's not going to talk to me. But if OSHA gets to the scene or the police officers get to the scene, they're going to talk to him or their officers. And you're going to get that report of what the statement in those investigation files that they prepare. So, that's one of the attorneys, a very good thing that the attorneys can do. And finally, Kate, I just have some tips for everybody that is listening and watches today. So please take note, report any workplace accident to OSHA or to your supervisor, at least to your supervisor. If you want to do it in a text, even better, because then you have evidence that you actually notify him. If you want to do it in an email, great. If it's a phone call, just make sure that you write down when you notify him and what time. And if you can have somebody with you, that'll be great. So it can work as a witness for that. That would create, again, the evidence that you report the accident. Write down the name of the person who gave you the job with address and phone number. This happened a lot on the Hispanic community, that they get hired by, who knows, one who they call him Juanito, and I really don't know what's his real name or his address. If you're gonna have a claim against Juanito, you're gonna need the full name and the address. And all the same with the co-workers. Those are the number one witnesses of how the conditions of the work were performed. I mean, they're gonna have a good knowledge to support your saying if you're the plaintiff. So if you have information about your co-workers, make sure you have the phone number and full name of the people that you were working with. Address of the project where the work was done. Document your injuries since the beginning. and keep all the medical bills as soon as you receive them. Keep them in a file. Don't throw them away. Don't throw them away. Keep them, and act fast. Those are the main tips that I have for you guys. So I don't know, Kate, do you have any questions? I know attorneys tend to simplify it in a way, but I don't know if it was clear to your audience.
I mean, I think this was great. You know, if anybody watching this, if you have had an accident at work, or your friend has, you know, the bottom line is what Christina is saying is call an attorney and take quick action after it happens, because the evidence starts to disappear. So I put her number back up on the screen, and I think this was really useful, and we'll have this on our YouTube channel so that, you know, later on down the road, if, you know, this isn't relevant to you now, but something happens in 6 months and you're like, oh yeah, they did that video, you can come back and find it, and you can call the Pastrana firm, or you can call our firm, and we'll refer you to them if you forget what the name of their firm is, but of course you know who we are. So thank you so much, Christina. I'm gonna stop sharing your screen so it's just our two faces.
Sure.
And so, we're going to talk about all this again in Spanish in 30 minutes, but I wanted to cover the T visa, which is the trafficking visa. It's considered a humanitarian case in immigration, and it's something that we always screen for. When someone calls us and they're like, you know, I want to get a green card through my spouse, and then we find out they have a bar or whatever, we're always asking, tell me about your workplace history. Have you worked at a company or worked for someone where you were forced to do something against your will? Well, most of the time people think, no, I haven't been, you know, a victim of human trafficking. Sort of the quintessential example of that is, you know, a young woman from another country is promised some nanny job, and she comes here, and then, you know, whoever brings her here takes away her documents and sells her for prostitution and forces her to pay off a debt. Well, that's obviously trafficking. Okay. So if that's happened to you, talk to us, because it doesn't matter if it happened a while ago. With the T visa, we do have to make a report to a law enforcement agency, and we have to request a certification from the law enforcement agency. But separate from the U visa for victims of crime, you don't have to get the certification. So if the agency decides not to investigate, it's okay. You can still qualify for a T visa. And the great thing about the T visa is that it waives all grounds of inadmissibility except for like committing genocide and being part of the Nazi party. I mean, so it's very broad waiver in terms of if you have criminal history, if you have entries and exits, false claims to citizenship, the types of bars or grounds of inadmissibility that can create major problems for immigration cases can be circumvented with a T visa. And so I wanted to just talk a little bit about like how to know if you've, you know, been a victim of trafficking, because if you were a nanny, if you were at a restaurant, if you work at a construction site, like all of this can be a T visa if you have the grounds of eligibility. So the first thing is, were you subject to involuntary servitude, debt bondage, or sex trafficking? Okay, we know what sex trafficking is. Debt bondage is when an employer says to you, you owe me money for whatever, for any reason, for bringing you here, for buying you something, for whatever, and now you have to work to pay back this debt that you owe me. Okay, that's called debt bondage, and that can be considered trafficking. And involuntary servitude, I'm going to read you guys let me see if I have it pulled up. The definition is it's a legal and constitutional term for a person laboring against that person's will to benefit another under some force of coercion other than the worker's financial needs. So that's pretty broad. Involuntary servitude is when you're working and you don't want to be, and you're not serving your own financial needs. So that's if you're being underpaid, if you're being overworked, like lots of bad workplace conditions can be considered involuntary servitude. So don't just assume that because I was paid but it wasn't enough that you don't qualify. And again, if you are wondering, just call us. And we'll talk to you about it. The other thing that needs to exist in a trafficking case is some sort of force or fraud or coercion. Okay, so all that means is that the employer lied to you, threatened you, maybe they took your documents. Maybe they told you they were going to call immigration. Maybe they were going to do something else to make your life harder. All of that can be considered force or fraud or coercion. So hopefully I'm getting the message across that this can be a very broad catch-all. And the T visa can be this amazing benefit for a family who may not have any other way to get immigration status, but they went through a difficult situation with an employer, and now all of a sudden mom, dad, and the kids can qualify. So it's another one of these humanitarian cases that can wrap in the whole family. And so it's really a great benefit for people who qualify. And the beauty of it is you get your work permit within 2 years and you get a green card 3 years after that. So it's a pathway to citizenship, all the way to citizenship. It's a very, very, I think, underutilized benefit in immigration. And when we do screening with people for their case evaluations, and it's like, no, we can't do it. No, we can't do it. No, we can't do it. And then we get to the T visa and it's like, okay, now we've got something. It's so exciting because most of the time people are calling us, they aren't thinking that one time, that family that hired them to be a nanny and forced them to work overtime by threatening them would qualify the whole family for a green card, and we actually just got a T visa for a client in that situation who had nannied for a family that overworked her.
So there's no statutes of limitation or anything about the situation that they were involved. Okay.
No.
Right.
No. So really, really good benefit to know about. It's not just for sex trafficking, the T visa. Call us if you have any questions. Here's our number again. Christina, it was so great to have you here. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
For those of you guys who want to know what we're talking about in Spanish, we'll see you in about 20 minutes.
All right. Thank you.